You already know this machine, even if you have never heard its name. John Prine wrote one of the most famous folk songs in America about it. The coal company's giant shovel that came to western Kentucky and stripped his family's hometown until there was nothing left. What the song never tells you is where the shovel went. We checked. In the spring of 1986, they drained it, laid its boom flat, and buried it in the pit it had dug itself. It is still down there right now. To understand how a machine ends up buried in its own grave, you have to understand how big it actually was. Its name was Big Hog. On paper, it was a Bucyrus-Erie 3850B, a stripping shovel. But those words do not prepare you for the thing itself. It stood 220 feet tall. That is a 20-story building that could move. It could reach out 460 feet, farther than a city block, and in a single bite it tore 200 tons of rock and dirt out of the ground and swung it away. The lip of its bucket alone was one piece of cast steel weighing 20 tons, the largest single casting Bucyrus-Erie had ever poured in the history of the company. It walked on 8 crawler tracks, and those tracks were built from pads. There were 296 of them, and every single pad was a steel casting that weighed almost 2 tons by itself. The operator did not climb into this thing. He rode an elevator 5 stories up to a small air-conditioned cab, and from up there he ran the entire machine with 2 hand levers and 2 foot pedals. And here is the part the other videos leave out. Big Hog had no engine. It was electric. It dragged a power cable as thick as a man's arm behind it through the mud everywhere it went, and it pulled enough electricity to run a town of 15,000 people. 52 separate motors lived inside it. It did not arrive in one piece. It could not. The parts came in on 300 railroad cars, and it took crews 11 months just to bolt the thing together on the spot. Because Big Hog was never built to be moved, or shown off, or admired. It was built for exactly one job. A few miles away, the Tennessee Valley Authority had just finished an enormous coal-burning power plant called TVA Paradise, and that plant was hungry. It needed coal faster than anything had ever dug it. So Peabody Coal ordered the biggest shovel on the planet, pointed it at the hills of Muhlenberg County, and told it to dig. And for a moment, that is exactly what it was. The biggest shovel on the planet. When it switched on in 1962, a magazine put it on the cover and called it the largest stripping shovel in the world, more than 3 times the size of anything else working at the time. But we checked that claim, and it comes with an asterisk that almost nobody mentions. Big Hog held the title for barely 2 years. Bucyrus-Erie did not build one of these machines. They built 2, both of them for Peabody. And the second one, a sister machine called River King that went to work over in southern Illinois in 1964, was actually bigger. It carried a larger bucket than Big Hog ever did. So the most famous giant shovel in America was not even the biggest of its own kind. Then, in 1965, a rival company called Marion finished a machine called the Captain, with a bucket half again as large, and the race was over for good. So when you hear that Big Hog was the world's largest shovel, the honest answer is yes, for about 3 years, and then never again. One more number while we are checking. You will read almost everywhere that Big Hog weighed 22 million pounds. The original engineering figure from the year it was new was 18 million, still almost impossible to picture. But 18, not 22. We try to get these things right, and we are about to get to the strangest part of all, how something that weighs 18 million pounds ends up underground on purpose. If you want to see how that happened, do us a quick favor and hit the like button and subscribe. Because while Big Hog was eating the hills, something was happening to the town right next to it. The town was called Paradise. It sat on a bend in the Green River, and it had been there since the early 1800s. A boy named John Prine spent his childhood summers there. His parents were born in that county. His grandfather ran the ferry across the Green River, and then Paradise disappeared. By the end of 1967, every building was gone. Every family bought out. The whole town wiped off the map. John Prine was a soldier at the time, stationed in the army in West Germany, when his father mailed him a newspaper clipping that said the town was being torn down. He sat down and wrote a song about it. He called it Paradise, and it became one of the most beloved folk songs ever recorded, sung later by John Denver, by the Everly Brothers, by Johnny Cash. The song blamed the coal company. It put a giant shovel and the Peabody name right there in the chorus. But here is where we have to hold the song up against the record. Big Hog did not tear down the town of Paradise. The shovel was working the coal field about half a mile away. The town itself was bought out and bulldozed by the Tennessee Valley Authority to make room for that growing power plant, and to move people away from the ash it was raining down on them. Peabody was so stung by the song that in 1973, the company printed an actual rebuttal, a pamphlet they titled Facts versus Prine, complaining that they had probably helped generate the very electricity used to record a song that falsely blamed them. Both things are true at the same time. The company did not personally haul the town away, and the town is still gone forever. John Prine just told the bigger truth in 3 minutes, better than any pamphlet ever could. If a verified story told straight is the kind of thing you came here for, go ahead and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. Now, back to the machine. By the middle of the 1980s, the coal under that mine was running out, and Big Hog was running out of reasons to exist. Over about 24 years, it had stripped more than 5,000 acres and uncovered close to 80 million tons of coal. And now, the seam was nearly empty, which left Peabody with a genuinely strange problem. What do you do with the largest shovel on Earth when you no longer need it? You would think you sell it, but nobody had a use for a 20-story machine bolted together for one specific pit. You would think you scrap it. 18 million pounds of steel sounds like a fortune sitting there. But this was the middle of the 1980s, and the price of scrap steel had fallen through the floor. And here is the part that makes the whole thing break. A machine like this was never designed to come back apart. Cutting it up, hauling it out, and cleaning up the site would cost far more than the metal was ever going to be worth. We know this because it happened to Big Hog's bigger cousins. When they finally scrapped Big Muskie, the largest digging machine ever built, the entire mountain of steel sold for around $700,000, while just moving it would have run into the millions. The scrap was nearly worthless. The labor was the real expense. So for a machine like Big Hog, in 1986, the cheapest thing you could possibly do with it was nothing. Leave it where it stood and cover it up. Now there is a story that floats around that Big Hog drove into a hole one day, broke down, and got buried where it fell. That is not what happened. Its boom did collapse once, back in 1980, when a wall was not blasted right, but crews repaired it and put the machine straight back to work. The burial, years later, was a decision, not an accident. In the spring of 1986, with permission from the state, Peabody drained every drop of oil and fluid out of it so it could not poison the ground. They stripped off the useful parts and shipped them to the sister machine in Illinois. They laid the giant boom down flat. And then, a drag line that had worked beside Big Hog for its entire life pushed the earth back over the top of it and sealed the largest shovel in the world into the pit it had carved with its own bucket. And that is where it is right now. Not in a museum, not on a scrap heap. Underground, in western Kentucky, beneath the land it spent 24 years tearing apart. We went looking for exactly how deep it is buried, and here is the honest answer. No public record gives the number. Some people say 80 feet, some say more than 100, but nobody ever wrote it down, so we are not going to pretend we know. What we do know is that the land on top of it is now a wildlife management area. The old pits filled with water and became lakes. Geese land where the coal used to be. People hunt and fish on the surface, most of them with no idea that 220 feet of the largest shovel ever built is lying in the ground beneath their boots, and has been for nearly 40 years. If you are still standing here with us this deep into the story, hit that like button before we finish. It is the one thing that tells the algorithm this old machine is worth digging back up, at least on camera. Because what gets to us about Big Hog is not only the machine, it is that everything in this story ended up buried, one way or another. The shovel went under in 1986. The town it helped empty had already been gone since 1967. And the power plant it fed, the entire reason it ever existed, the Paradise plant, finally died too. The last unit went cold in February of 2020, and 2 years after that, they brought the cooling towers down with explosives and watched them collapse into the same river valley where the town used to stand. The machine, the town, the plant. All three of them gone. Even the company that built it disappeared. Bucyrus-Erie, the firm that poured that 20-ton bucket lip, was swallowed whole by Caterpillar in 2011. That name does not exist anymore either. And the strangest part is that it did not have to end this way. A few hundred miles to the west, in Kansas, there is a machine almost exactly like it. Another giant Bucyrus-Erie shovel. And instead of burying that one, they turned it into a museum. You can walk inside it. Its name is Big Brutus, and we are going to tell you that story very soon, because it is the exact opposite of this one. Big Hog dug its own grave, and then it climbed in. If a buried machine the size of a skyscraper is something you had no idea existed until right now, subscribe so you do not miss Big Brutus. And tell us in the comments, if that shovel had been yours, would you have scrapped it or saved it?